Heep on community surveillance, and Dr. Naveen on role of COVID warriors, and Dr. B.R. Ramakrishna, Dr. Jyotirmayi, and Dr. Ayesha Anjum on role of Ayush in boosting general immunity in the general population and also in patients. We have received directions from the Ayush Department, Government of India, that Ayurveda, homeopathy, Unani, Siddha, and even Sowa Rigpa are all very useful systems of medicine that we have, which can help in maintaining the good immunity of our population and seeing that these general population will not get the disease. So it is to boost up the general immunity of the general population. The experts are going to give us inputs. Kindly bear with us for about an hour or an hour and a half. At the end of that, there will be question answer session. You could throw your questions either directly or through the chat box, and all your questions will be answered. And such programs will also be conducted and it made available on YouTube. Such of those who have not been able to register today and log on, they can download the YouTube and then go through the whole program and again ask us questions. So we are there to answer that and clear all your doubts. So this is the whole program. I take this opportunity to thank all the speakers who have come here today to enlighten us. So kindly, I request the first speaker come over here and talk about epidemiology and clinical features of the new disease all of us are encountering with. Thank you so much.
Being recorded.
Measures for COVID patients. That is the first one. Second one is staying in the same close environment of COVID patients, which includes workplace, classroom, household, or gathering. The third part is traveling together in a close proximity, that is 1 meter distance, with a symptomatic person who later tested positive for COVID. These are the definitions of the contact. Now we have two types of contact. One is high risk contact and second one is low risk contact. High risk contact, I'll be telling about high risk contacts now. High risk contacts are the persons who touch the body fluids of the patients like respiratory tract secretions, blood, vomit, saliva, urine and feces. And the second one is add a direct physical contact with the body of a person, with the body of a patient, including physical examination without personal protective equipment. Then the person touched or cleaned the linens, clothes or dishes of the patient. It could be healthcare worker, group D workers, or sometimes it could be the maid in the house. Then the person lives in the same household as the patient. Then anyone who is in the close proximity with the confirmed case without precautions, that is within the distance of 3 feet. Then passenger in close, that is any traveler, passenger in close proximity, that is within 3 feet of a convenience, with a symptomatic person who later tested positive for COVID for more than 6 hours. So these are the high risk types of contact. Coming to the low risk contact, type is the person who shares the same space like schools, worked in the same school, similar, and not having high risk exposure to confirmed or suspect case of COVID. And another thing is a low risk person is traveled in the same environment like bus, train, flight, or any mode of transit, but having a high risk exposure. These are the low risk type of contacts. Coming to the surveillance part, surveillance period is 28 days, that is for 14 days of quarantine at home, and next 14 days it is for self-reporting. 14 plus 14, 28 days is the total surveillance period. There are other modes like testing, sample and treatment, which should be taken up by the next speaker. Then key consideration for contact tracing is a positive case may have contacts in the multiple districts. Whenever a case is reported in the district, it becomes a responsibility of the district health authorities to track all the contacts located in the particular district, and later this will be reported to the state. So if in case of any high risk contact found in the particular district or the state, the sampling will be taken out by the district or state authorities along with the home or hospital quarantine thing, and later sampling to be carried out strictly according as per the guidelines, which I'll explain a little bit in next slide. This is about home quarantine isolation, that is airport arrivals, contact of confirmed cases. As any passenger who comes, that is every passenger arriving in India from COVID-19 affected country were followed up for 28 days irrespective of the symptoms. Now, since the this year there is a ban on the air flights and all. I mean, these things are little bit not applicable now, but currently earlier it was practiced very precisely for 28 days irrespective of symptoms. Then followed by the concerned PHC, primary healthcare staff, and reporting to Taluka. So what they will do is whenever there is a contact of this kind, there is something called as rapid response team. They will conduct a daily personal visit. They will follow up the patient for a specific duration. And also, suppose in any case, if they can't go, at least they'll follow it up with a telephonic thing. Next thing is personal details during this follow-up or during this tracking or tracing, symptomatic or asymptomatic, are always kept confidential. So there should not be any worries regarding this confidentiality. And finally, stamping on the dorsum of the left hand is put. Then taluka level compilation every day. That is, whenever there is such contacts would be there, the taluka level compilation would be done on every day. Later, they will report all these cases to district surveillance unit, and district prepares the line list of all the person who are suspected or who turns out to be positive. All those things would be prepared and reports to every day to the state surveillance unit. This is the picture. You can see very clearly there is a seal on the dorsum of the left hand. And the important thing is there is a date also which is mentioned. Then coming to the contact tracing, that is identifying the contacts of the infected person and recording them. Name, contact, and demographic information would be sought. Then data first and last exposure or date of contact with a confirmed or probable case is taken. Then date of onset with fever or respiratory symptoms developed. These are some data which would be collected from the person. The common source and the type of contact with suspected or confirmed case later is properly and thoroughly documented. Because you never know, contact can turn out to be positive later, earlier. So that's the reason proper document is done for all the contacts. Next one is what are the safety precautions which should be taken up by the health staff for contact tracing. That is always maintain 1 meter distance from the contact. Mask should always be worn by the contact tracing team. Provide personal protective, they should wear the personal protective equipment measures as per the requirement. At least mask, gloves, and some other personal protective equipments are required for the health staff. Then they should maintain the infection control, prevention and control measures, and also proper hand washing. These are some of the safety precautions that are currently taken up by our health staff for contact tracing. So this is one picture which is showing what happens if the case is identified in the community. Whenever the case is identified in the community, I'm talking the cases are identified in the community now. So identify the contact. These contacts would be monitored for 14 days from the time of exposure to case. If there is no symptoms, then monitoring will stop. Suppose if there is suppose during this period the contact develop a symptom, then they will identify their contacts and they will be monitored for 14 days. So symptomatic person who contacts also would be contacted later. So and this symptomatic person would be isolated and he will be tested, treated depending upon the test results of those things. Next, if the case is identified in the health community, earlier I told it was in the community, now I am telling about case in the healthcare facility. What happens here? So a case in the hospital, again identify the contact, same thing, monitor for 14 days, then treat all the healthcare workers and the patient contact, close contact of the patient regarding of the development of symptoms, and they after the end of the 14 days again they will be tested. If they are positive, they will be treated, or else they will be those samples would be taken up, and and if they turn out to be negative, those procedures would be stopped out. And again, same thing. Suppose if any of the contact turns out to be symptoms, same procedure, whatever I told earlier would be followed up. The symptomatic contact would be, their contacted would be traced in the field by the rapid response team. But and the symptomatic person again would be tested, and depending upon the results, depending upon the positivity or negativity, for the protocols will be taken up. Then coming to the cluster containment strategy, what are the scenarios? We have 4 different scenarios. One is travel related cases reported in India. Second one is local transmission of COVID-19, that is single cluster. Whenever there is a single cases present in the single clusters, what needs to be done? And the third one is large outbreak of COVID disease. That means to say that diseases will have a multiple clusters in the locality. The fourth one is India becomes endemic for COVID-19. So IDSP, that is Integrated Disease Surveillance Project, for Government of India and Government of Karnataka will be involved in community surveillance in all the above mentioned scenarios. So it is the responsibility of IDSP project to report and do the contact tracing and do all the other activities with related to community surveillance. The containment zone will be defined based on the number of index case. That is the first case which is seen in that cluster, which will be designated epicenter. Whenever there is an index case, the designated epicenter would be formed, and later geographical distribution of cases epicenter would be studied. Then local administrative boundaries of the urban cities and sound would be marked out, and other what are the necessity measures are required would be taken up for this containment zone. A scenario based approach would be taken up in this case while deciding the perimeter of containment zone. Coming to the containment zone, the decision of the perimeter of the containment zone is to be guided. There is some picture probably in the next slide, and you will be knowing better about that when I project that picture. Implement of perimeter control, all those things is a administrative responsibility. As I told you, rapid response teams will be taken up on those things. Next slide, please. Next slide. This is a picture where you can see the red dots followed by the yellow, this thing and all. So yellow dots, yellow is the picture which is a containment zone, and followed, covering that containment zone is the buffer zone. In other color, a buffer zone is an area around the containment zone where the new cases mostly occur. So whenever these cases seen, that's why we do something called as buffering zone with related to, they will mark an area with related to 3 kilometers or 5 kilometers depending upon the severity of the disease, and later this buffer zone would be sealed and other activities would be taken up in the buffer zone. There will not be any perimeter control for the buffer zone. As I told you, it depends on various measures. What are the administrative measures with related to perimeter area during the containment? Refrain from leaving their houses and moving around the containment zone for at least 14 days. Then the people should not participate in any events, even in indoor venues also. Whenever there is a fever or respiratory symptoms are detected, then employers actually they should cooperate for leaves and absence without written diagnosis. Then enhance entry screening for all travelers from the containment zone, involvement of all the concerned department like health, police, and various other department. So these are some of the information which has been given. 104 is Arogya Sahayavani, which is a call centers, and many people are accessing whenever there is some doubts, and this is the place where people can call. There is also helpline numbers like 08046848600. There is another helpline number 08066692000. There are also websites, that's karnataka.karnataka.gov.in. This in the information would be provided in the Karnataka. If you want, you can log in and get all the information. And there is also Arogya Setu app, which is there, so people can access all the information with the usage of Arogya Setu app. There are other reliable websites like Ministry of Health and Family Welfare website. There is also websites of the WHO where you can see the information with related to global. There is also a Twitter handle at DHFWK and MHFW India, PAB India. And some of the information would be provided on the activities, what are the with related to training, other things could be provided on the Facebook page of the Vice Chancellor Sir of the Rajiv Gandhi University also. So these are the references. Thank you very much. I thank VC Sir for providing me the opportunity to take the session.
So kindly, I request Dr. Shashi Bhushan to come over here.
Good afternoon, everybody. At the outset, I once again thank Dr. Satchidananda, Honorable Vice Chancellor, Rajiv Gandhi University, for giving me this opportunity to speak, to highlight certain things on clinical features and management of COVID-19. What we are doing in Victoria, I just want to highlight, and what is clinical features you come across. I'll be dealing with clinical features, clinical syndromes, how to investigate, and what treatment from the medical point of view. So clinical features, as most of you know, what are the clinical features of may you come across? The common symptoms are fever, fatigue. They can come with dry cough, anorexia, myalgia, all symptoms. They can come with any symptoms, whether it is related to GI, even conjunctiva, high problems, neurological issues. Of late, we are reading through a lot of literatures which shows that they can present to you with any organ-related issues. There are no specific clinical features that yet reliably distinguish from COVID-19 or from with any other viral infections. Certain tricky situation, what you should know is what we have come across through literature is in a study in Bangkok, they found out that the patient coming with fever presented with only skin rashes and petechiae with a platelet count and initially was diagnosed as dengue, but that turned out to be COVID-19 infection. In another series in Italy, about 20.5% developed skin manifestation like rashes, urticaria, and itching, plus or minus, and one case with chickenpox-like lesion. So this, you need to keep these things in mind and suspect all patients who come to us COVID-19 as of present situation. So as per the Chinese Center for Disease Control, the incidence of clinical manifestation has been divided into mild, severe, and critical. So in this, they made the severity is of mild is about 81%. So severe cases about 14%. Critical is about 3 to 4%. So most of them, what we have to take care of is the critical patients who come to us. So that's the percentage is very less, and compared to mild. Mild usually will be asymptomatic or with mild symptoms. As per the guidelines from the Ministry of Health keeps updating every now and then. So this is what there's a revised guidelines as on 31st March stating that how the disease classification has been done. It can be mild, moderate, severe, or very critical. So as you know that they can come, they can present with uncomplicated illness like simple fever, cough, sore throat, and you need to be careful again, especially in the elderly with immunocompromised, may present with atypical symptoms. Whereas in case of mild, the patient's signs and symptoms may be suggestive of pneumonia, but they can be clinically stable. So usually what happens especially in COVID-19 is hypoxia is more common. Hypoxemia will be disproportionate to the clinical symptoms. So that is one characteristic feature of COVID-19. So in case of severe, most of you know that severe pneumonia or severe infection, usually the patient will come with increased respiratory rate more than 30 per minute, and he will be in respiratory distress and oxygen saturation of less than 90 in room air. Acute respiratory distress, the patient these are the patient whom get into the hospital and their saturation levels, what we call as PaO2 by FiO2 is less than 100 millimeters. That is severe ARDS. It can be mild, they can come as mild, moderate, and severe ARDS depending upon our ABG levels. So you need to keep this in mind. So they can also present with sepsis and septic shock. I'll not deal more on these things, just to highlight what it is. So I'm just telling about what is in the Government of India guidelines. So when a patient with COVID-19 comes, what investigations you need to order for? You should know. At your level, you should know what investigations are required. Usually we try to get a routine, before we get the investigation, we need to confirm a case of COVID-19, whether it is through confirmation is done through RT-PCR. It's a swab test, throat swab or a nasal swab. Ideally what we are doing is we are trying to get both nasal and throat swab, but endotracheal secretion and bronchoalveolar is not done. It is only on the books, and if you do this, it's at high risk. The doctor or person who is performing will have high risk of he himself getting infected. So Of late, the next in line, what another probably a week's time, we'll be starting this rapid antibody test, which can detect IgM and IgG antibodies. So this will help basically whether the patient is infected with COVID. That's what it is going to tell us. Once a patient comes with suspected case of COVID-19, so what are the indications? When do you want to do a swab test, whether it is a throat swab or a nasal swab? All symptomatic individuals who have undertaken international travel in the last 14 days. This will hold good for another probably this month, and April 30 is what we are looking at, keeping in mind if they have a history of contact, a primary contact with an international patient. So this will continue till this month. Probably that's after next month onwards. I don't think so. This will come into picture. So all primary contacts of confirmed cases, whether he is symptomatic, you need to test immediately. If he is asymptomatic, usually we quarantine him and get a test done on 15th and 14th day. So to check whether he is positive or not. So all symptomatic healthcare workers needs to be tested. Patient, again, hospitalized patient who are suspected case of COVID, presented with severe acute respiratory illness, so needs a swab test to be done. And asymptomatic direct or high risk contact of a confirmed case should be tested once between day 5 and 14 of his contact. So in hotspots clusters, as per the Ministry of Health, in large migration gatherings and evacuation centers, these patients, these are two new terminologies called as influenza-like illness, where the patient can have fever, cough, sore throat, runny nose. Within 7 days of illness, we need to get an RT-PCR done. If it is later than 7 days, the antibody test, which is going to come up shortly, will be started off. So what are the other blood investigations? Once a confirmed case of COVID positive comes, you admit him in a COVID positive ward, and certain blood investigations are done. Usually routine blood investigations are done, like TCDC and routine blood investigation. And what is characteristics, what you are finding in a routine blood investigation is the total count may be normal, may be increased, or may be reduced. The characteristic feature of a COVID-19 is lymphopenia. The lymphocytes counts less than 10. So you can clinically say this is a COVID patient. So this is our experience, what we are able to make out on blood investigations. Other markers like serum ferritin, D-dimers, CRP, LDH, and procalcitonins. Other specific investigations like renal function, liver function, ECG, echo. If there is a facility to get an echo done, you can get serum electrolytes. These are all in the ICU setup. These tests can be done. Routinely, we are getting a chest X-ray in our unit, but not a CT thorax. So I don't think so. CT findings may be relevant for you people. I'll just skip this slide. Coming to the guidelines in management of COVID-19 as per the Government of India, Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. So as per the available data in India suggests that 70%, what the Chinese data showed 80% exhibited mild, but our data is showing 70% of the cases whether either exhibit mild or very mild symptoms. So these may not require admission to COVID-19 blocks or dedicated hospital. To ensure that available hospital bed capacity is used only for moderate to severe case of COVID-19, the standard operating this thing has been made, and SOP specified hereafter will specify that different type of facilities to set up in various categories of COVID-19. This was released today by VC sir, and for the all district hospitals, all these facilities will be henceforth start off. So what is called as the dedicated centers will be like COVID care centers. This shall offer care only for cases that have been clinically assigned as mild or very mild cases or COVID suspect cases. So clinical criteria should be case presenting with fever or upper respiratory tract illness like influenza-like illness. Exclusive will go to COVID care centers. So we have something called as dedicated COVID healthcare centers. Here the hospital shall cater for all cases that have been clinically assigned as moderate. So here respiratory rate should be around 50 to 30 and SpO2 between 90 to 40. Here a monitoring is required. So next will be a dedicated COVID hospital. Here the services offered will be patient with severe pneumonia whose respiratory rate is more than 30 or in ARDS or septic shock. All these three hospitals henceforth will be started very shortly. At the Ayush level, what I would request is you will be screening most of the patients. So where you have to know these things and accordingly you have to shift the patients. Depending upon the condition of the whether he falls to mild or very mild or moderate or severe. Slide depicts the same where you need to admit depending upon the severity. Regarding the treatment plan, I will not go into depth of the treatment plan. I'll just specify there is no specific treatment for COVID-19 disease or vaccines as of now. It's only supportive therapy as advised. You need to give symptomatic treatment provided depending upon the patient clinical status. You give oxygen, peripheral antimicrobial, IV fluids, inotropic support in case of shock, and mechanical ventilation. When a patient is in acute respiratory distress syndrome. In Victoria Hospital, we have categorized the patients based on the symptoms, signs, and vitals. However, based on the available information, the following drugs may be considered depending upon the situation where these drugs can be used. We are using both hydroxychloroquine and azithromycin. These drugs should be administered under close medical supervision with monitoring for side effects, including QTC intervals. So under monitoring only, this has to be administered when you are giving in a combination. So these guidelines are based on currently available information and would be reviewed time to time as new evidence keeps emerging. So zone wise, we have made into 4 zones. Group A is green zone, that is confirmed positive patient. Patient may be asymptomatic with or without comorbidity. We have a separate ward for these patients. The group B is yellow zone, is a confirmed positive COVID patient, symptomatic with or without comorbidities like diabetes, hypertension, ISDs. So the group C is the orange zone, where you have a confirmed, it's a confirmed case with symptomatic whose respiratory rate is more than 24 per minute, SpO2 of less than 90% in room air, who requires oxygen and support. The red zone is the patient who is in respiratory failure requiring ventilation or hypotension requiring inotropes on support. So coming to hydroxychloroquine prophylaxis, this is again recommended by Ministry of Health on 22nd of March. What it says is asymptomatic healthcare workers involved in a care of suspected or confirmed cases should be given hydroxychloroquine prophylaxis. That is 400 milligram on day 1, followed by 400 milligram weekly for 7 days to be taken with meals. Or the second one more category where this prophylaxis is given is asymptomatic household contacts of a laboratory confirmed cases. Here you are giving 400 BD on 1 day, followed by 400 weekly for 3 weeks. So once a patient is symptomatically better, when do you want to discharge a patient? So ideally, the discharge criteria is when 2 swab samples on the 14th and 15th day, 2 consecutive days, his nasopharyngeal or oropharyngeal samples should be negative. That is the criteria. If you are in an ICU, there should be some radiological resolution. So that is the major criteria, and he is advised supervised quarantine for another 28 days. So this is the criteria for a discharge. And symptomatic medication you can give for a patient who gets discharged. Thank you.
Dr. Naveen V to make his presentation on role of COVID warriors. Over to Dr. Naveen.
Good afternoon, everyone. So my topic for today's session is role of COVID warriors, specifically with relation to Ayush system. So basically the COVID warriors might be for frontline workers or a second line workers, starting from doctors to all the BBMP workers. So everyone can be considered as COVID warriors here. Nurses, doctors, administrative people, everyone can be considered as COVID warriors. But as far as my presentation, I am limiting myself to the COVID warriors of AYUSH system. So the objectives of this session will be that at the end of the session, participants will be able to know who are COVID warriors of AYUSH system, and participants will be able to understand the role of COVID warriors of AYUSH systems on COVID-19, and participants will be able to understand the brief outline of role of COVID warriors of AYUSH systems on COVID-19. So coming to the who are COVID warriors with relation to AYUSH system, it can be classified into two, that is AYUSH doctors and AYUSH students. So under AYUSH doctors, all the AYUSH faculty of different institutions and colleges can come under the AYUSH doctors, and AYUSH practitioners, including the government practitioners and private practitioners, can come under the purview of AYUSH doctors. And it also includes postgraduates of different departments of different institutions and interns of different institutions. These are the people who come under the purview of AYUSH doctors. Whereas AYUSH students are concerned, it basically involves undergraduates, and specifically it has been advised that it is better to take final year students as considered as COVID warriors, and it also includes NSS volunteers of various AYUSH institutions or colleges. So before entering into the topic, actually the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, in association with Ministry of AYUSH and Central Council of Indian Medicine, have already conducted a master training program to AYUSH faculty of various institutions, and these AYUSH faculties who have undergone this master training program, they are supposed to train the AYUSH students. At this level, this master training program is concentrated towards AYUSH students, and it is also been advised by the CCIM to conduct this training to AYUSH students and submit the report by 10th. And I request all the AYUSH faculty people to conduct this training program for the AYUSH students. Coming to the role of COVID warriors, this is just an outline what are the roles of AYUSH students specifically who are considered as COVID warriors. Here basically the role of COVID warriors has been outlined by the district collector, district surveillance officer or chief medical officer of the area. So what is the main role? The main role of AYUSH students here is to support the AYUSH doctors or the supervisors or the lady health supervisors in different parameters. So the main things that students have to involve is that they might be involved in field surveillance. So conducting survey in the field like contact tracing, quarantine issues, all those things can be done by the AYUSH students. And also the most important thing is to create community awareness. So this is the most important aspect that has been advised by the Ministry of AYUSH also for the AYUSH students, to create community awareness. Just like for example hand sanitization, how it has to be done, social distancing, how it has to be maintained, how to identify high risk groups. So such type of things of awareness programs has to be done by the AYUSH students. And reporting and feedback, whenever they go for the surveillance, whatever they find, that has to be reported, and also the feedback has to be given back by the suspects or contacts or the people who are in quarantine. And the another most important thing is again to advise or educate people or educate the community specifically with personal safety and precautions. So these are the areas where AYUSH students will be employed. So in brief, in concern with the field surveillance, AYUSH students might be advised to go to house surveillance and conduct the survey as per the government orders, and identification of HRGs, probable cases, and if they find any probable cases, and it is the duty of the AYUSH students to report it to the district collector. So they provide psychosocial care and stigma and discrimination. Since stigma and discrimination is one of the most important aspects that have been happening to many people, so it is very much essential for the AYUSH students to see that the stigma and discrimination is not done in the community, and to educate them how to remove stigma and discrimination from the community. So such psychosocial care also has to be taken by the AYUSH students. So this is the reporting chain that has to be done whenever a student goes for a survey. So the AYUSH students or the field workers will do the survey and they will report and give the data to the AYUSH college principals, institution heads or master trainers, and they in turn it will be given to the district AYUSH medical officer, surveillance officers, and finally it will be given to the deputy commissioner. Coming to the community awareness through interpersonal communication, this is the brief outline. So here the students have to promote preventive and control measures, which include social distancing, home care, what are the things that have to be taken care at home, those who are in quarantine or those who are in lockdown period. And it also includes hand hygiene, what are the methods which have already been explained by the previous speakers, and respiratory hygiene, how the person has to cough and what is the method that the person has to use while sneezing, and all these things has to be educated to the community, and also educate about social distancing, and also educate about high risk groups. Who are the groups, like specifically like older people and pregnant ladies and children. So you have to educate the community to this. And another important thing is to addressing myths and conception. There are many myths and conceptions, specifically sometimes in the AYUSH system, that we are coming across that there is cure for the AYUSH for this COVID-19 and all. So such type of myths and misconceptions has to be addressed, and we have to bring to the notice what are the government or the Ministry of Health Affairs what they are doing. That has to be brought into the notice. Coming to the personal safety and the precautions. So here basically when the students, if they go for the community surveillance, and it is also very much essential to see that they have to take precautions and they have to take care of their safety also. So it basically involves when the students are moving around in the community, it is always advised to wear at least maintain 1 meter from the people who are communicating, and use a 3-layered mask to cover your face when you are going for the survey. And make sure it is properly worn while contact tracing, and when there are many videos which will give you the idea about how the mask has to be worn and how it has to be disposed. And you should also avoid touching your face at all times, and wash your hands with soap and water frequently, or use alcohol based hand rub, which have already been explained previously, and avoid touching or direct physical contact with the people. And immediately after coming back to your home, this is also another important thing that a student has to do. Carefully remove and dispose of your face mask by soaking in bleach solution and then throwing it in a covered dustbin. So you can go through the mask management, the links that have been shared in the next coming slides. Wash your hands with soap water, that is already been done. Wipe down what you have carried, like your purse and mobile, with home-based disinfectants, which can be prepared with 4 teaspoons of household bleach in 4 cups of water. If you get any symptoms like fever, cough, or difficulty in breathing, report to the nearest government facility or district surveillance officer immediately. So by using the helpline, you are not supposed to go directly to the healthcare facility. By using the helpline, you have to call them. So these are some of the guidelines, or these are some of the study material which have been provided by the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. And these are all open access links. You can go through this link and get equipped with all the material. This is for the AYUSH students. These are the guidelines or the links that have been given by the ministry. So that was regarding the AYUSH students. And the another role of COVID warriors are the AYUSH doctors, which include AYUSH doctors, AYUSH faculties, PGs, and interns. So as per the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, AYUSH doctors have been put under for these 4 categories. So their services will be availed in the field supervision and in infection prevention and control, at the level of isolation facilities, and at the level of medical care, nursing care, and in non-COVID areas. And after discussing with presently in the government of Karnataka, so there are certain things which have already been implemented, and these things can be put under the 4 headings which I mentioned in the previous slides. So presently our AYUSH doctors their services are availed and have been deputed for home quarantine enforcement squad, where the squad which includes the police also, and they will be working under the particular police jurisdiction. And it is a responsibility of the AYUSH doctors to provide instructions to the quarantine subjects what to be done and what not to be done. It is the duty of the AYUSH doctors. and it also inquire about COVID symptoms in the quarantine subjects, and if at all, if they are present, and they are referred to the COVID designated hospital. And in case if the people refuse to quarantine, and it is also the duty of the Ayush doctors to file an FRI. And another responsibility under the field supervision is that the transport of non-COVID subjects. And these are again the Ministry of Health which have been given for Ayush doctors specifically related to the field supervision. Coming to that, the level of isolation facilities, presently only the nursing staff services are available in Karnataka. So these are some of the guidelines for the nursing isolation facilities, specifically setting up isolation facilities. Such type of guidelines have been given here, and guidelines for clinical management, and which will be revised very often. So you can get it in the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. At the level of infection prevention and control, our doctors or Ayush doctors presently are being deputed in COVID screening centers. Their services are available for screening the COVID suspects, and also latestly they have been associated with fever clinics. All the doctors and postgraduates have already been deputed in the Karnataka in fever clinics. And I would also like to bring to the kind notice that all these above roles as such as of now has been availed by only the government Ayush doctors and faculties of government of Karnataka. Still now the private institutions have not yet been engaged in such activities, and so these are the areas where even the private doctors and private practitioners all over the Karnataka can be engaged. And these are some of the links which can be given for infection prevention and control. And the last one is the medical care and nursing care in the COVID areas. Here also, as of now, the services are not been used, which can be used in future. And these are the two important links everyone can go through. That it contains the resource material for capacity building of healthcare professionals for COVID-19 containment, and advisory for human resource management of COVID-19. If you go to these two links, you will be getting all the details and all the material, education material, and also training materials, so that all the Ayush doctors and Ayush students can go through this, which are freely open access, and we can be well equipped with all the training materials, so that in future, if our services are required, we can definitely get into the action. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Naveen, for your very good presentation on role of COVID warriors. Now we have another 3 presentations on the role of Ayush in boosting general immunity, maybe with special reference to the present scenario of COVID-19. One is by me, Dr. B.R. Ramakrishna, on the role of Ayurveda and Yoga, and Dr. Jyotirmayi later on homeopathy, and Dr. Ayesha Anjum, who will be what you call as presenting with regard to the Unani system of medicine. Role of Ayush in boosting general immunity, but my topic is with reference to how Ayurveda and Yoga can boost the immunity. COVID-19 in the perspective of Ayurveda, COVID-19 falls into the category of Sankramika, Aupasargika, Janapadodvamsa, that is communicable, contagious, epidemic and pandemic disease caused due to Bhutabhishanga, infection caused by microorganisms, here virus. Janapadodvamsa are due to pollution, contamination and imbalance of our ecosystem. And adharma, unrighteous and immoral acts and thoughts and talks, is the root cause of Janapadodvamsa. See, a pandemic cannot happen just by an ordinary causative factor. When people cross Lakshmana Rekha, what we call as the limits as a human being, definitely it leads to these pandemics. Region, season, water and air play an important role in causing pandemics. You know, This COVID-19 is a Sankramika Upasargika Janapadodvamsa disease affecting the respiratory system, what we call it as Pranamahasrotas, and exhibiting the symptoms of common cold, what we call in Ayurveda as Pratishyaya, to SARS, severe acute respiratory syndrome. Based on the etiopathogenesis, as well the classical symptoms and signs of COVID-19, and the Ayurvedic concept of Tridoshik involvement in the disease manifestation, COVID-19 can be understood as Kapha Pradhanaja Sannipata Janapadodvamsa Jwara, mainly affecting the Pranamahasrotas. Its mode of transmission, see, in Ayurveda it is said Jwara, Kushta, Shosha and Netrabhishanda, that is viral conjunctivitis. These are called as Upasargika Rogas. And how they are transmitted? They are transmitted through Prasangat, social gathering, Gatra Samsparshat, physical contact, Nishwasat, through droplets produced during exhalation, Saha Bhojanat, taking meals in one plate, Saha Asanat, sitting very close by, I mean not maintaining the distance, that's why we say keep distance. Saha Shayat, sleeping in groups or in dormitory, and Vastra Malyanu Lepanat, sharing cosmetics, cloths and jewels. So these are the means how these Upasargika Rogas or Janapadodvamsa Rogas spread from person to person. Next. Ayurvedic concept of disease prophylaxis. Immunity plays a pivotal role in disease prevention and treatment. What we call it as Vyadhikshamatva or Roga Nirodhaka Shakti. Balam hi alam nigrahaya doshanam and baladhishtanam arogyam arogyartham kriyakramaha. If a person possesses immunity or Roga Nirodhaka Shakti, no COVID-19 or COVID-20 can trouble you. But how we can improve our immune system? It is through proper ahara, vihara, vichara and achara, depending upon one's prakriti. And secondly, the proper dinacharya, rutucharya, sadvritta, sadachara, rutu samshodhana, achara rasayana and naimittika rasayana specific to respiratory system can definitely boost immunity. When we talk about balanced diet, you know, Shashtikan Shalimudgamscha Saindavamalake Yavan Antarikshaha Payaha Sarpihi Jangalam Madhuchabhyaset. It definitely includes the present days carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, minerals, micronutrients and fibers. But what you have to insist is Sarvarasabhyasohi Arogyakaranam. The food, whatever we consume, should contain all the 6 rasas. And especially with regard to the respiratory diseases, horse gram soup, what we call it as Kulatha Yusha, is a very good dietary supplementation. The spices should include turmeric, ginger, black pepper, cinnamon, cumin, black cumin, cloves, garlic, ajwain, that is omam, tejapatra, asafoetida, coriander, pudina. In fact, this may be one of the reasons the incidence of COVID spread is very less compared to other countries, because we Indians, we eat lot of spices. Next. The vegetables that should include is drumstick, asparagus, shatavari, amorphophilus, linseed, onions, brinjal, snake gourd, pumpkin, ash gourd, bitter gourd, beetroot, carrot, and green leafy vegetables, and bottle gourd. These vegetables have by nature Ushna Guna, and it helps to prevent, boost the immunity with regard to respiratory system. And the fruits, we can have papaya, we can have eleki, banana, cranberry, strawberry and all dry fruits. And it has been very clearly said, Nityam hitahara vihara sevi savikshakari vishayeshva saktah data samaha satya parakshamavan aptopasevi cha bhavatya rogaha. If you want to be healthy, we should focus on our ahara, vihara, vichara that essentially includes our lifestyle. And we need to avoid refrigerated items, cold water, curds, deep oil fried, heavy foods, and citrus. No doubt citrus fruits contain a lot of vitamin C, but with reference to Ayurvedic concepts and the principles with regard to the respiratory diseases, this is contraindicated, and all other fruits which exclude the one indicated are not preferred. Next. See, the government of India has already issued a guideline, specific Ayurvedic measures for boosting immunity. It is available in almost all the websites, and which virtually talks about the basic concept of our Ritacharya, Dinucharya, and use of simple herbs, spices. Next. See here, Chawanaprash, which is very most popular immunomodulatory formula, and the herbs like Tulsi, Maricha, Shunthi, ginger, all these have been recommended in different forms. One may take it in the form of tea, or they can use it as spices in our day-to-day food preparations. And the golden milk, that is half teaspoon of haldi, that is turmeric powder, in about 150 ml of hot milk once or twice daily, it can definitely boost. And many research papers have been published with regard to the efficacy of these spices. Next. And the general measures to enhance body's natural defense system, you need to drink warm water throughout the day, and daily practice of yogasana, pranayama, meditation at least for 30 minutes, and use of again haldi, dhania, garlic, jeera, lashun. All these things will definitely help to boost up our immune system. Next. And here again, steam inhalation with the fresh mint leaves or ajwain, it can definitely help. And similarly, using the clove powder, that is lavanga powder, with honey, and it helps to overcome the dry cough and the sore throat that will be persisting during this infection. And also it can inhibit the multiplication of the virus if it is harbored in the oral cavity. A simple home remedy to boost immunity recommended by Ayurveda experts. It contains 8 ingredients: Amrita, Tulasi, Nagavalli, Shunthi, Estimadu, Haridra, Pippali, Nagakesara or Maricha. All of you know this Amrita has a wonderful immunomodulatory effect as well as antiviral effect. More than 100 scientific papers have been published with regard to its efficacy, and it is easily available in fact in the villages and in the cities also. And by making use of all these ingredients, one can make a wonderful decoction and take it in a dose of 30 ml twice daily. For children, half of that, it can definitely boost our immune system. And classical Ayurvedic formulations, when it is not possible to make that earlier kashayam, whatever is said, Amritarishta or Amritottara Kashaya that is available in the market, which can be taken between 10 to 30 ml twice daily. Similarly, Chavanaprash or Agastya Haritaki or Deshamula Haritaki or Haritakyadi Lekhya, which can be taken between 5 to 20 grams depending upon the age, followed by a glass of warm milk added with quarter spoon of turmeric powder, can definitely boost our immune system. And there is Vardhamana Pippali Rasayana Yoga in the form of Kshirapaka. All our faculty members and the students, they know the technique, but this is for a period of 12 to 48 days. It can certainly enhance immunity with respect to all respiratory diseases. Next. To keep the entry routes of microbes sterile. See, this COVID-19 or whatever the SARS type of viruses, their entry is either through nose or through the oral cavity, nasal passage or through oral cavity. And for this, we have to keep these two gates sterile. For that, Pratimarshanasya, you know it, putting 2 drops of ghee or Anutaila into each nostril twice daily, it can definitely inhibit the multiplication of the virus. Similarly, Gandusha, that is gargle with lukewarm water or salt water or Triphala Kashaya added with a quarter teaspoon of turmeric powder. Kavala, commonly known as oil pulling with either Tilataila or sesame oil or coconut oil for 5 to 10 minutes it can cleanse, it can sterile, it can make your oral cavity sterile, and it can help to minimize or to make your oral cavity sterile and free from the virus. And similarly, Abhyanga oil massage with sesame oil, coconut oil, and regular bath for the water added with neem leaves, it can definitely helps to cleanse the viruses if they are all linked with your system. And Tambula Sevana, which has been said in Ayurveda, with Jati Phala, Karpura, Lavanga, Twak and all, it is again to see that the viruses are not multiplied in the oral cavity. Next. Role of yoga in improving. See, among the Ashtanga Yoga, we have Yama, Niyama, Pratyahara, which virtually part of lifestyle. They help to improve our general immunity and also to promote the positive health. Asana Pranayama, there are a lot of research papers on this which improve physical endurance and lung functions needed to prevent any respiratory disorders including COVID-19. Dharana Dhyana Samadhi, they lead to inner journey to attain peace, confidence, and definitely needed to prevent and fight against the disease including, any diseases including COVID-19. The Division of Yoga and Life Sciences of Swami Vivekananda Yoganusandhana Samsthan has developed standard protocol preventive measure for different age group. For children between 16 to 18, there is a protocol. Similarly, for 18 to 60, and for elderly people, there is protocol. That protocol includes loosening exercises, breathing exercises, different kriyas, techniques, pranayama, meditation, and all these are available with the link. You can go through it and practice regularly, at least for 30 minutes daily. Now, the integrated approach of Yoga and Ayurveda module: avoid social gathering, physical contacts, avoid using cosmetics, jewels, and clothes of others, follow Dinacharya, Rutucharya, Sadvritta, Sadachara, light down in Ayurveda, follow Yama, Niyama, Pratyahara as described in Yoga, use of Naimittika Rasayana, what we have mentioned, Chavanaprash and other things, they are disease specific immune boosting formulations, and practice Asana Pranayama, Dharana and Dhyana on regular basis as said in Yoga. And these are the few links available, already earlier speakers have told. I do not want to repeat it. Conclusion. Earnest request to all the Ayush fraternity is to involve actively to fight against COVID-19 without any delay. Get yourself trained well by the competent authority in order to serve well and protect yourself. Follow all the directions and precautions being issued by the Union Government and Government of Karnataka from time to time. Educate the recipients by using all your skills about seriousness of COVID-19 and its prevention through lifestyle modifications of Ayurveda and Yoga. Making any false claim about the preventive and curative measures of COVID-19 is not allowed and liable for criminal prosecution. One thing we should remember, everyone, as COVID-19 is a global disaster. There is no other option for anybody other than following the guideline issued by WHO, and we have to honor, respect, sincerely follow the guidelines of Government of India, ICMR, and also our state government. Treat the patient as your God in this serious emergency condition. Rugna Devo Bhava. Thank you. Let us work, dedicate, and pray for COVID-19 free society. Thank you. Now it is over to Dr. Jyotirmayi BJ on the role of homeopathy in boosting general immunity.
So good afternoon, everyone. So I thank Dr. Sachidananda sir and other faculties present here by giving an opportunity for me. And my topic being is role of homeopathy in boosting general immunity. So today's objectives are concept of health, disease and treatment in homeopathy, as this is known to homeopathic faculty, but this is for other faculties, and homeopathy concept of prevention of disease and boosting immunity, and historical references in preventive of epidemic diseases by homeopathy, and what homeopathy offers in prevention and control of COVID-19. So I take this stage as an opportunity. Today is our father of homeopathy, Dr. Samuel Hahnemann birthday is there. So I thank him for giving this wonderful system of medicine to the world. And coming to the concept of health, disease and treatment in homeopathy, all these are mentioned in Organon of Medicine by Dr. Samuel Hahnemann. So the health is harmonious flow of vital force in body and mind, which is responsible for health. And which, in disease aspect, vital force in the organism is deranged by dynamic influence by morbific agent. And treatment, here in homeopathy, treatment is based upon some 7 cardinal principles. As law of similia, it is similia similibus curantur, and law of minimum. So minimum means we are using very little amount of drug or little amount of medicinal substance we are using. And next is doctrine of drug proving. So this is very important. So doctrine of drug proving, as in homeopathy, we prove the drug on healthy human beings, and whatever recorded symptoms are there, that is under that we will keep in our materia medica. So next is theory of chronic diseases. So here Hahnemann mentioned about miasms as a basic fundamental cause for the diseases. And next is theory of vital force, where it is a spiritual force where it is flow in the human being. And next is doctrine of drug dynamization. Again, this is a gift by Dr. Hahnemann, where doctrine of drug dynamization is a process he explained there. How even if we take the ourself as a, when it is in a materialistic dose, it is very harmful. When we do the doctrine of drug dynamization, the efficacy of the drug will come out, and it will give a fine signs and symptoms, and we can use in a healthy human being. So coming to the homeopathic concept of prevention of disease, as Hahnemann mentioned in the aphorism 4, as a physician is a preserver of health. In relation to this, he has to remove the exciting cause and fundamental cause. So here exciting cause can be the age, gender, occupational factor, moral and intellectual factors, lifestyle, environmental factors, and social factors. As fundamental causes, as per homeopathic system is concerned, we are having miasms, as each individual is having these in a proportions as half acute miasm, psora, psychosis, and syphilis. So to remove, if we remove these things, we can attain the health, and this leads to boosting of immunity. By practicing, how we can do this? By means of practicing good morals, maintaining hygiene, good lifestyle practices, proper nutrition diet, and avoiding maintaining and exciting causes. So this is for the exciting causes. Coming to the fundamental causes. So fundamental cause can be removed by proper anti-miasmatic homeopathic medicine administration. So this can be, we'll discuss in later. So here selection, how we can select these anti-miasmatic drugs. So selection of homeopathic medicine in homeopathy is not based upon the disease name. So it is based upon the totality of symptoms. So here we are not selecting the remedy as for COVID-19 or H1N1 or dengue like that. So we will consider the totality of symptoms, and these symptoms we call as rubrics. By using these rubrics, we use the proper repertory. So repertory here is the indexing of symptoms. Next, so these, when we use the rubrics in the proper repertory, so group of remedies will come. So group of remedies will refer in the materia medica. So materia medica is nothing but recording of the symptoms after drug proving on healthy human being. So after referring this, we'll come to conclusion of one remedy, which can be a anti-miasmatic or which can be a prophylactic remedy. So here, historical reference in prevention of epidemic diseases, but his contribution in the prevention of epidemic diseases, here only few of them I am mentioning here. The Friend of Health, an article by Dr. Samuel Hahnemann published at Frankfurt on the Main in 1972, the malignant fever which is contagious one should take precautions to preserve their health, and it is criminal offense for healthy person to sit beside with sick. So as we are talking now social distancing today, and he also mentioned about fumigation of the hospital, and he also mentioned about the personal hygiene in his article. So next, in another article, Cure and Prevention of Scarlet Fever by Dr. Samuel Hahnemann, published at Gotha in 1801. In this article, author says belladonna was used in treating as well as preventing scarlet fever successfully. Another example, Dr. Dorothy Shepard in her book Homeopathy in Epidemic Diseases mentioned that during the 1918-1920 influenza epidemic in US, the allopathic death rate was 30%, whereas the homeopathic death rate was 1%. Camphor was used as prophylactic remedy. So next is the British Homeopathic Journal reported a trial on HIV infection in 1999. The study aimed to evaluate the role of homeopathic remedies on the immune system of HIV positive cases, CD4 plus and CD8 plus lymphocyte count significantly increased against placebo groups. So an open observation study on efficacy of homeopathic medicines in the prevention of Japanese encephalitis in state of Andhra Pradesh in India from 1999 to 2004. This is published by Government of India. So guidelines of homeopathic practitioners for clinical management of dengue fever, CCRH 2015, referred by Ayush Government of India. So here they have given specific homeopathic remedies to prevent these epidemic diseases. So here, for what homeopathy offers in prevention and control of COVID-19, so homeopathy can be used in all levels of prevention. So here primary prevention by prophylactic remedy as genus epidemicus. So here genus epidemicus is the remedy which will be, we can, there are 4 methods are there where we can arrive for the genus epidemicus. Here one approach is, as already I told you, second approach is using nosodes as a prophylactic remedy. So nosode is nothing but it is drug prepared by the disease drug prepared by the disease material to prevent a particular disease. For example, tuberculosis can be treated with the tuberculinum drug prepared with the tissue of the tuberculosis patient. Like that, influenzinum can be used for the treatment of H1N1 as it is taken from the material by the patient. So this is the one method, and the next method is by using specific organ remedies, for example Drosera in whooping cough and Epitorium in dengue. And another approach is that there is a miasmatic approach where camphora has used in asciatic cholera in Hahnemann period itself, and Thuja has been used in smallpox epidemic in Hahnemann period itself. So here, with above references in homeopathy, the selection of medicine is not on the basis of disease. Already I told you this. So we can find prophylactic remedy by taking case of many patients of COVID-19 patients and considering common symptoms of all patients for repatriation. As in Karnataka, we have not taken cases of COVID-19 patients. So we can consider symptoms given by WHO. So here WHO symptoms I have taken here. So only fever is not sufficient for us. So fever, when it is where, the stages of fever, even dry cough, we need to have the modalities, whether it is more in the morning, more in the night, or what makes the worse and what position makes amelioration, that these things are we required. And even sputum production, what is the color of sputum, all those things we need, and even shortness of breath. And this is again we need the modality. And sore throat, again modality we need, headache, where the part of the head we need. So here these are the symptoms as taken as it is we have repertorized. So here arsenicum album has come. So this as per this arsenicum album is covering almost all rubrics when we refer into materia medica and considering mental symptoms. Here in the symptom list there are no mental condition they have not mentioned there. So as as this is a pandemic disease, everybody is having fear of death is there, fear of disease is there. So if we consider this, even arsenicum album is covering these symptoms also. So that for that the reason we can give arsenicum album as a prophylactic remedy, as a preventive remedy for the COVID-19 patients. And you can see here many other remedies also into the other remedies also we can see. So aconite is there, sulfur is there, phosphorus is there, silicea is there. So these are all remedies are there which are covering the symptoms. So here only covering is not needed in homeopathy. So we have to need complete as earlier I mentioned, totality of symptom is needed for us. So if we get the cases of COVID-19, so we can come for a finer remedy. So as mentioned earlier, in the secondary prevention, we can think of Bryonia, Camphora, Influenzinum. So Influenzinum is again a nosode which is used in H1N1 flu-like or swine flu as we call earlier. So Justica adatoda and Osimum. So Osimum is a drug where even Ayurveda people are using, and Sorinum etc. can be used according to the law of individualization. And even tertiary level, only palliative treatment we can suggest, where Carbovec, cadmium sulf we can think of in the tertiary level also. So this is the homeopathic approach, and these are some references.
Thank you, Dr. Jyotirmayi, for your presentation on role of homeopathy in boosting general immunity. Now I request Dr. Ayesha Anjum to make her presentation on role of Unani in boosting general immunity.
Firstly, I thank Almighty Allah, RGHS Vice Chancellor Dr. Sachidanand, esteemed speakers and other faculty members. A warm welcome and also a good afternoon to all the participants. Today my topic is role of Ayush, in particular Unani, in boosting general immunity. See, what is the role of Unani? I would like to speak what is the role of Unani in these challenging times. A trap is a trap if you don't know about it. And if you know about it, it becomes a challenge. So let us accept this challenge, join hands together and make India COVID-19 free. Prevention is better than cure. Unani medicine recognizes the importance of disease prevention. Hence, the focus is laid on Tabiyate Mudabbire Badan. According to Hippocrates, the father of Unani system of medicine, he says Tabiyate Mudabbire Badan is a hidden facility provided by God, or a defensive mechanism which is present in each and every individual. So Tabiyat is nothing but the physique and is considered the real healer of the body. And what is the role of the doctor or tabib, physician, is to aid this Tabiyat. So if the Tabiyat or physique is strong, then there will be no disease acquired. And if the Tabiyat is weak, then there are chances or the person is prone to acquire a disease. Unani physicians recommend improving the body immunity and strengthening the Tabiyat by restoration of health and management of diseases. See, there are different modalities of treatment which I have not elaborated because we are here to speak only about the boosting of immunity. So there are different modalities of treatment, and for this purpose, various drugs under the headings of Mukhaviye Azai Raisa, tonic for the vital organs, Mukhaviye Badan, general body tonics, Mukhaviye Asab, nervine tonic, Mukhaviye Jigar, liver tonic. These drugs are used. This can be correlated with the concept of immunomodulators in contemporary system of medicine. In Unani system of medicine, we also not only depend on the immunomodulators or boosters, but also the target organ. For example, in COVID-19, the target organ is lung. Therefore, we give such drugs where the lungs are strengthened. Single drugs having immunomodulator effect on body. See, there is a significant scientific studies carried out on immune system. And they have proved that immune system is the only system which has the ability to combat diseases. So therefore, it is our duty to prevent the disease by improving the immunity of the body, and this can be achieved either by the single drugs or by the compound drugs. Now I'll be speaking on single drugs having immunomodulator effect on body. The first is Nigella sativa lin or Kalonji, also called as black cumin seeds. It is reported to increase the phagocytic activity by stimulating the immune cells and increase the activity of immune potential. And scientific studies also say that Nigella sativa oil contains nigellone and also thymoquinone. This thymoquinone has a derivative which is known as hydroxychloroquine. So therefore, it has antihistaminic property, anti-inflammatory property, and we also know that COVID-19, there is an inflammatory cascade wherein the patient lands up in ICU. Therefore, this cascade can be prevented, and beforehand, we can start with these medications. Curcuma longa or haldi extract probably related to the production of monocyte colony stimulating factor or granulocyte stimulating factor. That is, it helps in improving the defense mechanism of the body. Tulsi, Raihan, Osmium sanctum link, immuno-enhancing property may be related to the antioxidant, vitamins, saponins, glycosides, polyphenols, flavonoids present in the extract. Therefore, this actually helps in scavenging the free radicals from the body. Asgandh, the main constituent of asgandh responsible for increase of antibody titer are steroidal lactones, polysaccharides, proteins, and peptides. It is a very good immunobooster and also anti-inflammatory. Neem is a potential immunostimulant against cytotoxic drugs and can be used as a complementary therapeutic agent. These again are the single drugs such as Amla, Filfiledaraz, Fova, Aslasus, Gilu. All these drugs are the best immunomodulators and scientifically validated and proved. There are many research papers. It has anti-inflammatory properties. Example, Aslasus. Filfiledaraz has antihistamic properties. Gilu again has anti-inflammatory and also antimicrobial properties. Amla is an excellent source of vitamin C and it has plenty of antioxidants. So all these properties helps in improving the immunity and combating the anti-inflammatory, that is inflammatory activities. Now we'll speak about Ghazai Dawai or nutraceuticals. See, the emphasis is laid on Ilaj bil Ghiza. Now we are going to take this nutraceuticals and prove that this will be helpful or very beneficial. For example, barley. Barley 1:20. Barley 100 grams and 20 parts of water boiled till it becomes pinkish in color and then it can be taken. For example, it has plenty of fibers which helps in controlling of sugar. Now, as we know, this disease is seen in extremes of age and morely common in aged people rather than in children. Only one child has died till now, but the aged persons face too many consequences if they are associated comorbidities. So barley helps, and also Rogan Zaitun and also dates. If the dried dates are used, it is very good hypoglycemic agent. Compound formulations used by our Unani Hakims during epidemics. So this Tiryake Wabai was used by Avicenna and Galen for prevention of spread of infection and as treatment to prevent complications. The ingredients are Sibr, extract of aloe vera, Zafran, Murmaki in the ratio of 2:1:1 and the dose is 500 milligram thrice a day, three times in a week. And this can be continued for up to 45 days. Randomized placebo-controlled trial was conducted in National Institute of Unani Medicine to evaluate the stimulating effect of Tiryake Wabai in elderly persons. And the study concluded that it has stimulating effects on immune system. Arche-Ajib. This was used in epidemic outbreaks with flu-like symptoms, cholera, and also to reduce pain caused due to illness. Its composition is Satte Ajwain, Satte Kafur, and Satte Pudina. These agents have essential oils and they are very good immunomodulators. All the above ingredients are scientifically proven to have immunomodulator, analgesic, and anti-inflammatory activity. Sharbate-Unnab, that is a syrup of Ziziphus sativa. It was used during the epidemic outbreak. Ziziphus sativa has also been scientifically validated to have immunomodulator effect and also antimicrobial property. Conclusion. Modulation of immune system with herbal drugs which are scientifically proven may offer novel approach in prevention of COVID-19. These are the references and thank you.
At the outset, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude on behalf of the Ayush faculty for providing this training program to Ayush faculty, postgraduates, internees, and undergraduates. All the systems of medicine have presented their presentations as far as the immunity booster in respective faculties. I congratulate all of them. Dr. Ramkrishna and Dr. Naveen has given a very good presentation regarding the immuno booster in the Ayurvedic system. Sir, as you know, for this COVID-19, Charaka mentions that even though a new disease which has been not described in the textbooks, we have to adopt the treatment based on the doshas, dhatus involved in the manifestation of that disease. On the guidelines of Charaka, we have to formulate a management module for this COVID-19. Nobody is claiming that COVID-19 can be cured, but certainly there are certain medicines in the Ayush system of medicines that immunity can be boosted so that the disease can be prevented in small population of the affected people. Now, even our Prime Minister is also of the opinion that there should be an integrated approach for the COVID-19. We, from the faculty of Ayush, very ready to render our services in the form of an manpower to fight this disease. Already, Ayush practitioners are being involved in various fields, in quarantine centers, in fever clinics, and we welcome and we are ready to serve in this regard. And I would like to bring to your kind attention that integrative approach is going to help a lot in the states like Kerala, wherein Ayurvedic medicines, homeopathic medicines are given at the rural level, and they came to know that it is giving good results. The Punjab Chief Minister is also given an advertisement that Ayush medicines can be distributed, as well as today itself our Goa Minister is our Chief Minister is also said that they are going to have an integrated approach. And I request Honorable VC and Dr. Ramkrishna sir say that the Ayush medicines can also have an integrative approach. And with this, for giving me an opportunity to share my ideas with you, I hope that we are able to fight this COVID-19 in a very effective way with an integrative approach. Thank you very much, sir.
For your opinion. I think now the floor is open for questions. You can ask questions so that the experts would be clarifying your doubt.
First question is, please highlight the matter of giving opportunity to Ayurveda doctors for treating COVID-19 patients.
See, this COVID-19 is not an issue of a state or a country. It has become a global disaster. Nobody can manage or fix up a guideline according to our own method of thinking. World Health Organization is there, and in India ICMR is there, and Government of India is monitoring. No doubt we may claim that these are effective, give us an opportunity to make use of our drugs or herbs, whatever. But there is no scope for any one of us other than to follow the global guideline from WHO. But we can use any of our home remedies, whatever is confirmed or whatever has been in practice to boost our immunity. So today's the title is also whatever we made presentation is not claiming immunity against COVID-19. It is purely an effort to boost up our general immunity. Therefore, it cannot be done.
Okay, sir. Next question is, how do you explain the primary person test negative for the virus and the contact test positive for the coronavirus?
With our experience, we can only say that whom you coin as primary might be wrong. There might be another primary considering the current phase of the epidemic. So there can't be a place where the primary is negative and the secondary is positive. Maybe the primary has gone through the disease and then turned out to be negative, but there can't be a situation where the primary is negative and the secondary is positive.
A role of Agni in the management of COVID-19.
According to Ayurvedic concept, Agni plays a pivotal role. Sarve doshaha manda agno. All diseases for that matter are on account of improper functioning of the Agni. But whatever we have suggested here as a preventive, it may be Shunthi, Pippali, that's called Pippali, Nagakesara, Maricha, they all activate Agni. In fact, in Bhagavad Gita, all of you remember, Aham Vaishwanaro Bhutva Praninam Deham Ashritaha. If Agni is strong, no disease can come nearby. Therefore, in order to keep Agni strong, what is the best method? Langhana. Langhanam Paramoshadham. Already, the government of India has given a call that you skip one meal and whatever you pay for that meal contribute for Prime Minister's fund. So in order to keep our Agni strong, let us keep one meal. Let us have only one breakfast and one meal, and whatever we used to spend for that one meal, let us contribute for COVID fund to the central and the state governments. By that, we will be helping the government and we will be helping our own system. Agni becomes strong, no disease can come nearby.
Next question, can you throw light on blood profile of a COVID-19 patient?
Basically, in COVID patients, the counts may be normal. The total count, what you are seeing, WBC count may be normal or may be raised. The only diagnostic feature for a COVID is patient usually have lymphopenia. Lymphocytes are reduced less than 10. So that is one where we can suspect that this patient is a COVID patient. The other blood test, what we are getting is we are trying to get total serum ferritin level, D-dimer levels, LDH level. This will give an idea. Like, this is not done in most of the hospitals. This is ours is being a specialized center. We are doing this, which is helping us in the further prognosis or further evaluation of the patients.
Is there a chance that COVID test can be positive third or fourth time?
Yes, we are experiencing these situations like this. Right now we have 2 patients who continues to be positive on 15th day, 18th day. This is likely to happen. Through our expert opinion, we have found out that even at the day 24, the COVID test is positive. We just have to wait and watch until it becomes negative.
Most of the drugs are available in Ayurveda medical shops. So in this lockdown situation, how to guide people to purchase the drugs for regular usage?
See, we have said very clearly, Amrutadi Kashaya, one Kashaya, whatever we have recommended with 8 ingredients, you can prepare at home. These are all home remedies. They are available, very much available ingredients at your kitchen. Amrita, what is called as Ginospora cardifolia, is available in the compounds. Actually, even in the city, it is grown, and in the villages, everyone knows it is called Amrita Balli. And all other ingredients, whether it is turmeric or black pepper, shunthi, All these are home remedies. There is no need to go to the market or search of these things. But when inevitable, in a city like Bangalore, they are given options like Amritarishta, Chavanaprash, and Haritakyati Rasayana and other things. You can buy it, it is available.
What is your opinion on medication or the process of Dhupana?
Yeah, Dhupana will definitely help, but as our experts have already explained, actually it spreads through droplets. Okay, and when a droplet it falls on a surface, its life is there. But if the temperature is high, it gets evaporated and it becomes something like a dust particle. But if you fumigate, the droplets may get destroyed. Therefore, fumigation with tulsi, fumigation with neem or pangyama, all these things can be done. But there is no proof for having seen the what you call as absolute results.
We are doing fumigation with sodium hypochlorite solution.
Correct. There is a proof for that. But
But
there has been a practice, but we do not know. But can be done.
yeah,
Okay, sir. Can we use Rasaushadhis in COVID-19 to get faster results?
See, who has done it now? We don't have evidence. But anything which has no evidence, should we use it now? No, it is not advisable. We will not recommend.
Okay, sir. The last question, is there any chance of recurrence of COVID-19 after the test is negative?
yes, there are instances where it has, but not in India. As of now, we are not seeing. Probably in Japan and few other places, they turned out to be positive. Maybe the antibody or reinfection, we really don't know what's happening in that situation. Possibilities are there.
Is it necessary to report a cold which has resolved? This patient had a travel history.
Yes, better to report it. But as of now, the travel restrictions are, travel is being stopped. So probably we need to observe, keep him under quarantine or observation to see that he has his symptoms are worsening. So that's observation should be done.
Okay. There is also plasma therapy which is proposed to treat COVID-19. Can you please give us more insight regarding the same?
Basically, convalescent plasma therapy is nothing but a patient who's been cured of COVID-19. Probably at the day 15, his blood is drawn. So this is separated through plasmapheresis. His plasma is taken, and then it can be reused in a patient who's very sick. So they have found out in 5 patients in China where acute severe respiratory disease was cured by using a convalescent plasma therapy.
Okay. Is there any home remedy to boost the immune in this situation? As I think already
I have explained, and it will be available in different links, and you can follow it.
Once a person gets infected, will he get immune for lifetime?
So once a person is definitely infected or there is a disease status, the body develops an antibody so that to fight for the virus. So probably there is a chance that there is some antibodies to fight against it.
As of now, the immunity seems to be lifelong, but there are situations where reinfection has occurred, as earlier sir told, in Japan and 1 or 2 other countries.
Banigod sir, do you have any questions, sir, or anything you want to say?
I don't have any specific questions. Is COVID-19 going to be a long time disease for us? It is not going to end, because we have seen many patients are seropositive but no clinical features are seen. So we have to learn a lot from in days to come. So my sincere request is to integrate all the system of medicines as it has been in some of the states, so that the immunity can be boosted. So that's my concern. So integrative approach will give good results, and it brings down the infection rate also. It brings down the infection rate also. So wherever it is possible, you can use the manpower of the Ayush doctors. We have Ayush colleges are there, government Ayush medical centers are there. So through that we can make an arrangement to distribute the medicines, Ayush medicines, and these medicines can be prepared by, because we already Ayush task force has been constituted by Karnataka government. A common medicines from both Ayurveda, Homeopathy and Unani can be made available for the patients whosoever wants to take it. Nothing harm in consuming it, and whether it's going to give results or not. We are not going to claim that we are going to cure the COVID-19, but at least we shall give some preventive measures to the patients, as well as the severity of the infection can be reduced. Coming days will come how much, whether it is effective or not. But anyhow, wherever it is possible, we can integrate all the system of medicines to fight against the COVID-19. This is my concern.
Thank you, Dr. Benigol. Whole world is looking at integration now. Whether the law allows or not, definitely patients prefer integration, and your suggestions will be communicated to the concerned authority, and we will hope for the best.
One more question is that apart from travel and contact history, have you found any other histories or community transmission is present?
This is only in certain hotspots where there is a contact. We really are not able to make out how they got the infection. Like a hotspot in Mysore, Delhi. These are the places. So probably there would be some contact history with either a prime or a history of travel, or the person having contact with the travel positive patient. So this is one possibility. Coming days we can answer all the questions.
Later.
Okay, thank you, sir.
So now, Ayush Doctors online training program on COVID-19, which has been conducted by Rajiv Gandhi University of Health Sciences, Bangalore. Sir, this innovative program could happen because of the vision of our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. S. Sachidanand. In fact, the day he has taken over charge, he is focusing in a manner of integration. What Dr. Benigol is telling, that is being practically done by our Sachidanand, and led on behalf of all Ayush faculty, express our Abhinandan and Abhivadan to Sachidanand sir.
So I think it is now time to close this scientific session, but before that, I take this opportunity to thank the Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Sachidanand, who actually has given the platform and has made all the arrangements in the university to ensure that this web conferencing is done, and this online platform is used for the education of Ayush faculty in the affiliated institutions and also practitioners and others. I also thank Dr. Ramakrishna, the Honorable Vice Chancellor from S. Vyasa University, Bangalore, and he has been the leading and towering personality for this Ayush faculty from the Ayush discipline. And I take this opportunity to thank all the speakers. I understand that from the questions which I saw here and there, that we all love our system of medicine, whether it is allopathy or Unani or homeopathy or Ayurveda, yoga, naturopathy. But today I'm very happy that one of the doctors from Ayush is very much insistent that should be given an opportunity to treat the patients. But today, in many of the scenarios, some of the doctors are not coming forward to come close to the patient. Thank you very much. And you please take your memorandum to the highest authority in the country, and please root it down, and we'll be very happy to be a part of integration. and also we'll make our best efforts to save the patients. And regarding one question, how long this will continue? This will continue to declare that an area is free from COVID-19 in spite of that is following a good surveillance. That is current surveillance and heightened surveillance. If there are no new cases for a month, that is twice the longest incubation period, which at the moment is taken as 14 for all scientific purposes. If there are no new cases, that area will be declared free. But with the slow rising of cases as on today, I don't foresee anything happening to that extent till the end of May, June. Okay, May, June is a optimism. October, November is pessimism. So we close it here. Thank you very much. And this one session will be available on YouTube, and please recommend others to see that. And also we'll follow it up at a later stage, maybe in the subsequent days, one more, when only question and answer sessions may be taken, or if you have got any other suggestion to further improve and strengthen this program for the Ayush faculty, Ayush students, please inform the university. Thank you very much. Have a nice evening. Thank you.